A TV emergency broadcast reports a new virus outbreak at an airport. The infected become violently aggressive, and the airport is soon engulfed in flames. 2 months later, the virus has turned into a global pandemic. Victims transform into zombie-like creatures called ferals, known for their uncontrollable rage. The government enforces a quarantine, but protests erupt as some citizens argue that ferals still deserve rights. Clashes between the military and civilians escalate the chaos. One day, all TV channels suddenly go dark. Abigail and her brother receive a call from their father, a pilot, who tells them he's busy with rescue operations and assures them they'll be safe with their mother. Just then, a noise upstairs sends the family fleeing the house. As they reach the car, a feral attacks and kills their mother. Abigail hides under the car and watches helplessly as the feral turns on her brother. A police siren nearby drives the creature off. Abigail hears her brother calling out, but their mother, now a feral, finishes him off. Abigail's cries alert her mother, who comes after her, but is shot by Cassius. He saves Abigail, who hugs him in relief. When her brother begins transforming, Cassius tells Abigail to close her eyes and shoots him. 10 years later, the world is devastated. Cities are overgrown, and humanity is scattered. In the forest, a teenage Abigail and Cassius hunt for food. Abigail kills a deer with a clean shot, showing her training, though Cassius warns her about being impatient. That night, they set up camp with tripwires. When one triggers, Cassius wakes and finds some fur in the wire. Hearing movement nearby, he calms the horses and shoots a feral just in time. He suspects it was a scout and wakes Abigail so they can move. In the following days, they continue traveling. Cassius trains Abigail whenever they stop to rest. One afternoon, they spot a man near a car shooting at a feral. As another feral sneaks up behind him, Abigail fires too soon. Her shot hits both the man and the creature. Another feral emerges from the car, and Cassius is forced to take it down. Afterward, Abigail searches the car for supplies, while Cassius kills the wounded man with a machete and takes his shoes. A radio inside the car attempts to contact the driver, but Cassius tells Abigail to ignore it when she wants to warn them about nearby ferals. Just then, more vehicles arrive. A group of armed survivors surrounds them. They inspect the dead body, notice human-inflicted injuries, and assume Abigail and Cassius killed him to steal from him. When the group's leader threatens them, Cassius and Abigail quickly disable 2 of the survivors and take their weapons. Tension rises as both sides aim at each other. A pregnant woman named Megan steps out of a car to calm the situation, but the horses become agitated. A feral horde emerges, and everyone opens fire. Despite the gunfire, the ferals close in, forcing Cassius and Abigail to fight with blades. The other survivors struggle without close combat skills and begin to fall one by one. A woman prepares a Molotov cocktail, but a feral attacks her, causing the firebomb to explode on a nearby car. The blast knocks Cassius back. A bitten survivor tries to kill himself, but has no bullets left and turns into a feral. The group's leader is captured by a large feral and beaten to death. Megan's husband, David, is tackled, but manages to break free. Abigail helps the couple into a car while Cassius kills more ferals and joins them. As they drive off, a feral clings to the roof. Cassius brakes hard, shaking it off. Abigail quickly gathers their gear, and the group escapes. The large feral sees his mate among the dead and lets out a furious roar. On the road, Abigail checks their supplies and finds most of their ammo is gone. Megan reveals they were heading to a riverside colony. She's 35 weeks pregnant and expects the baby soon. Cassius and Abigail remain skeptical about colonies, having seen many fail. Suddenly, the car breaks down. With the engine dead, they continue on foot. They reach an abandoned town and decide to rest for the night. After clearing a building, they set up camp. Megan offers food, but Cassius and Abigail refuse, only eating what they hunt to avoid infection. The couple explains they contacted the colony by radio and were told it has supplies and medical staff. It's a week's journey away. In return, Abigail shares that she and Cassius are heading to the west coast to escape to the islands. Cassius sets up tripwires outside, then shows the couple a route to the colony on a map but declines to join them, warning that the horde will likely return. Later, Abigail urges him to help, arguing this colony could be different. Cassius refuses, and the two argue. That night, the horde locates the broken car and begins tracking them toward the town. Meanwhile, Cassius and David can't sleep. Cassius shows David a bullet he keeps for emergencies if he gets bitten. David, with only a cigarette and an injured ankle, bonds with him during the conversation. Eventually, Cassius agrees to help them reach the colony. The next morning, Abigail hears a noise and goes to check. A feral ambushes her, making her drop her gun, but she quickly kills it with her machete. Another feral chases her upstairs. Abigail manages to throw it out of a broken window to end the attack. Abigail nearly falls, but Cassius catches her in time. By the time the horde reaches the building, the group has already escaped. One of the ferals triggers a tripwire, setting off a small explosion that kills him. Later, Abigail recognizes the area and recalls a nearby civil airport where her father kept a small plane. Cassius argues against the idea, thinking the airport is too exposed and likely empty. However, Abigail and the couple outvote him, and the group heads toward the airport. Along the way, they find an old building and a car with a recently shot man inside. Cassius tells Abigail to check the building for supplies, but refuses to stop and rest, believing others may be nearby. Abigail finds some coffee, but doesn't notice a hidden family inside one of the rooms. Cassius opens the car trunk and finds a wheelchair, which they use to transport Megan. After the group leaves, the horde reaches the building and kills the hidden family within seconds. When they arrive at the airport, they find no planes on the tarmac. David and Cassius begin to argue over their next move, but Abigail interrupts them after spotting her father's hangar. Inside, they find a plane. David has the mechanical skills to attempt repairs, so he gets to work while Cassius and Abigail search the building. Abigail finds a photo of herself with her father and puts it back on the wall. The horde arrives before the plane is ready, so the group prepares for takeoff. Cassius opens fire to slow the ferals. David manually turns the propeller to help start the engine. Abigail's flying skills are limited, and the plane struggles to accelerate. As the horde gets closer, she finds the correct controls and the plane begins to pick up speed. A feral grabs onto the door, but Cassius shoots it off. The plane takes off and they escape. Moments later, the plane begins to malfunction. Abigail attempts a landing, but the aircraft crashes through trees and hits the ground. It lands upright, and everyone survives with minor injuries. They find a nearby train station and confirm it's clear. The group decides to rest there. Cassius checks the map and estimates it will take 2 days to reach the colony, so they plan to leave in the morning. Abigail checks their ammo and notes they're running low. Later, Megan shares food with Cassius. He tells her she reminds him of his wife. He explains he once had to kill his wife's infected family and that she later took her own life. He also recounts how a local boy was bitten and took several days to turn because the wound didn't hit an artery. Meanwhile, David secretly checks his ankle and reveals it isn't twisted. David's wound is a bite. He considers ending his life but can't go through with it. The next day, the group continues traveling under the hot sun. David starts to feel weak. Cassius spots blood on David's leg and waits until the women walk ahead before pinning him to a tree to inspect his ankle. The bite confirms his suspicion. Cassius gives David a choice: tell the others soon or he'll do it for him. That evening, they spot a house with lights on. As they approach, a voice questions them. Cassius warns it could be dangerous, but Abigail steps forward and explains their situation, mentioning Megan's pregnancy. A man named Norton opens the door, holding them at gunpoint. He tells them to leave their weapons in a chest outside before inviting them in. He's friendly and welcoming once they're inside. Norton explains that he's an engineer and has built devices to generate power and heat. He mentions a wife but avoids answering Megan's question about her. Norton shares food with them, and Abigail takes a shower. Cassius finally powers up his laptop and looks at old photos, revealing his wife had been pregnant before the outbreak. When he checks on Megan, she says she hasn't felt the baby move since arriving. She makes Cassius promise to protect her child if anything happens to her. Later, Norton shares drinks and talks about his life. He's lived in the house for 2 decades and has heard about the colony but prefers isolation. He then begins ranting about society's downfall, claiming the virus was nature's way of removing the weak and that only the strong survived. Cassius notices a strange knife on the table, but Norton quickly removes it. David, feeling worse, heads to the bathroom and sees the infection spreading. When he returns, he finds the group unconscious. The drinks were drugged. Norton, now wearing a lab coat, activates a device that emits a high-pitched noise, causing David intense pain. Norton explains the device is like a dog whistle that targets the infected. David passes out. Meanwhile, the horde finds the empty train station and keeps searching. David regains consciousness in a basement, tied up with the others. Norton is nearby, taking notes and explaining his experiment. His infected wife is locked in a cage. Norton releases her and uses the device to control her, forcing her to attack. Cassius and Abigail kick her back, and she redirects her focus to David. David breaks free from his ropes and fights her. The struggle is brief. David gains the upper hand, but before he can free the others, Norton activates the device again. David, not fully turned yet, endures the pain and breaks the remaining ropes. Cassius finds a gun and shoots at Norton, who runs off. The group rushes upstairs and locks the door. Norton starts breaking it down with an axe. Abigail takes Norton's car keys while Cassius retrieves their gear and punches David. He considers shooting him, but the women convince him to wait. Outside, Megan's water breaks on the way to the car. Norton watches as they drive away. His wife growls at him. As they reach the forest, the horde spots them and gives chase. The group sees lights in the distance. It's the colony. They drive fast but are forced to stop when a fallen tree blocks the road. They continue on foot. With the horde closing in, they open fire. David runs out of ammo. Knowing he's close to turning, he tells the group to leave and stays behind to delay the ferals. Cassius gives him a bullet before leaving. David lights a cigarette and fights the ferals hand to hand. He takes down a few before a larger feral sneaks up and breaks his neck. The others continue chasing the group. Abigail opens fire to protect Cassius, who carries Megan. She calls for help, alerting the colony guards, who shoot the ferals. The horde retreats after seeing the lights and dead bodies. The group enters the colony, and Megan is taken to the infirmary. A midwife begins treatment. The next morning, after meeting the colony leader, Cassius tells Abigail they should leave soon. He doesn't trust people. Abigail disagrees and chooses to stay. Cassius later learns from the midwife that the baby is fine, but Megan won't survive the day. Megan names her daughter Hope and gives Cassius her family locket before passing away. Norton arrives at the forest and sees the bodies. He spots the colony. The horde tries to attack him, but he uses his device to control them and prepares for revenge. Inside the colony, Cassius takes care of Hope. Abigail meets local teens and joins their party that night. After some guards fall asleep, a few teens enter a tunnel. Abigail follows and finds a remote. Roderick stops her and explains the colony is wired with explosives. If the ferals invade, the remote will blow everything up. Survivors can escape through a hatch leading to an abandoned dam. The next morning, Norton finds a guard on a boat and kills him. A feral enters the colony through the water and kills another guard. Norton now leads the full horde in an attack. Ferals begin killing colonists. Some armed survivors fight back. Abigail saves Roderick from a feral and assigns roles. Armed teens move to higher ground. Roderick guides survivors to the dam, and she goes to find Cassius. As the colony falls into chaos, the midwife takes Hope so Cassius can search for Abigail. Ammunition runs low. The colony leader tries to flee but is killed by a feral. Abigail shoots one, attacking two girls. Cassius stabs another to save two teens. Cassius and Abigail reunite and fight the ferals together. They head toward the evacuation point, but Cassius spots Norton and is attacked by a feral. He kills it, then confronts Norton. Norton talks about rebuilding the world, but Cassius manages to overpower him and smashes the device repeatedly. The ferals turn on Norton and kill him. The others reach the tunnel. Roderick prepares to detonate the explosives but hesitates. Abigail isn't out yet. Inside, the big feral attacks her. Cassius hits it with an oar. When it falls, Abigail notices a bracelet and realizes the feral is her father. She freezes and Cassius pulls her toward the hatch. They reach the tunnel as Roderick detonates the charges, destroying the colony and all the ferals. Later, the survivors discover an infected man among them. Cassius tries to calm him, but a feral suddenly attacks and kills him. The feral turns on Cassius. They fight until the feral nearly bites him. Abigail waits for the right moment and shoots, killing the creature without hitting Cassius. The group watches the burning remains of the colony. Abigail suggests starting a new home at the dam. Cassius reveals he took Norton's notebook, which contains instructions to build a generator.